Welcome everyone. This is the live virtual roundtable event where we'll discuss reimagining the employee experience. I'm your moderator, Douglas Brown, CEO at Halo Consulting, a certified minority-owned search firm based in Chicago. Halo was founded in April of 2020 to provide the process-oriented best practices our team developed at top executive search firms with a risk-free, cost-effective fee model tailored for early stage and high-growth startups for their most critical hires. If you're new to this event, Halo hosts monthly virtual roundtable events like this one for HR, tech, and DEI leaders on a variety of topics. Don't forget to check out the Halo series and mini series where we hear from executives taking a deep dive into what is keeping them up at night. This event is being recorded, and feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A function and we'll address those questions throughout the session. Early next week, we will be sharing a survey to gather your feedback, and we will post a recorded version of this event to our YouTube channel on Monday. Today, we are joined by a passionate and fantastic group of HR leaders and executives. We do want this to be an interactive session, so please ask questions using the Q&A function. First, I'd like to introduce Amy Hall. Amy is the Vice President of Human Resources for Bell Techlogix, an IT managed service company headquartered in Indianapolis. Amy is responsible for optimizing the company's human resource talent by establishing and growing a culture of high performance to support business growth. She leads all aspects of human resources, including employee retention and recruitment, talent development, employee engagement, policy, benefits and compensation management, and heads the Unify committee focused on inclusion and diversity. Amy serves as a legacy leader for Pass the Torch for Women, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting women throughout their careers with mentoring, networking, and leadership training, as well as the Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Global Orphan Foundation, a nonprofit focused on orphan care in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Amy holds a bachelor's degree in communication from Indiana University, as well as a master's degree in organizational leadership from Gonzaga University. Thank you for joining us, Amy. Our next panelist is Tori Miller-Liu. Tori is the president and CEO of the Association for Intelligent Information Management. She is an experienced association executive, technology leader, speaker, and facilitator. Previously, she served as the Chief Information Officer of the American Speech Language Hearing Association and has 16 plus years of experience in association management. Tori is a member of the ASAE Technology Professional Advisory Council and a founding member and board member of the Association Women Technology Champions. She was named a 2020 Association Trends Young and Aspiring Professional and 2021 Association Forum 40 Under 40 Award recipient. She is also an alumna of the ASAE Next Gen program. She is a certified association executive and holds an MBA from George Washington University. We're excited to have you, Tori. Next, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Mancuso. Jennifer is the Vice President of Human Resources at North Highland. In her role, she drives North Highland's people strategy, overseeing the firm's talent development and retention, performance management, and training. Jennifer has over 15 years of human resource experience, including leading core HR functions across a range of industry sectors, including biomedical, food services, transportation, and manufacturing. In addition to leading core HR functions, she has held audit and compliance responsibilities related to labor laws. Her experience directing HR strategies for a diverse array of business models is well aligned with industries North Highland serves and with its brand and vision as a human-centered firm connecting people to unleash potential together. We're happy to have you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Lastly, we are joined by Stephanie Roseman. Stephanie is the Vice President of Human Resources, People, Solutions, and Experience at Allstate Insurance Company. In this role, Stephanie is responsible for the continued development and execution of the employee experience, including the human resource technology and centralized services strategy. She leads the workforce relations, Ask HR, payroll, HR technology, employee experience, and business services operation teams, and is also responsible for the HR operational risk and, in partnership with corporate brand, leading HR communications for the enterprise. Stephanie is a strategic and critical thinker who is known for her customer and employee-centered approach. Since joining Allstate in 2019, Stephanie has made significant contributions, including the integration of Esurance and National General into the Allstate framework, leading the HR organizational capabilities and design initiatives, being a guide for Allstate's response to COVID-19 and return to office strategy, and is currently leading the full review of the HR technology stack and strategic implementation of new systems. Prior to Allstate, Stephanie spent much of her career in leadership roles at Ford Motor Company. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Michigan and her Juris Doctor from the University of Wisconsin. Stephanie and her husband Seth have two boys, Rafi, who is 15, and Micah, who is 12, and a COVID puppy named Mayhem. Great to have you on the panel, Stephanie.
Thanks, great to be here.
Let's dive into our first question. Reimagining the employee experience can be a transformational initiative with proper foundation and roadmap, allowing organizations to thrive in the new normal as a result of COVID-19. Can the group touch on the importance of a well-defined employee experience and why it should be at the forefront for executives? Jennifer, would you like to kick us off?
Absolutely. In terms of why this should be at the forefront, when we look at what COVID-19 did for us, it really was a workforce revolution. Employees were put in the driver's seat to determine their work experience and their environment that best supported them. And we saw through the Great Resignation that they chose with their feet. If they weren't having the employee experience they wanted, they would go find where they could have it. And what we found too is it's not just about one generation or one group of employees. We're seeing this desire for a fantastic employee experience to be across groups, across markets, across demographics. And it's a consistent push for individualization within the employee experience. So from our perspective, in order for growing companies to attract high quality talent, the ask of employees is beyond just compensation and benefits. They've prioritized their experience as the basis for choosing for or against companies. So why does your leadership team need to be equipped to really drive the employee experience? One, they need to be able to describe what your firm or what your business wants the employee experience to be. The second thing is they need to ensure that they're providing those experiences and that environment for the teams they lead. And then the third thing is the measurement and the reassessment of whether or not the environment is consistently aligned with that employee experience and that is leading to the desired results for employees. So from my perspective, the bottom line for the employee experience is what will enable you to succeed at recruiting and retaining employees is that employee experience. You've got to have it well defined. You've got to have it as a living and breathing and evolving experience. And for most of us in our business, our people are the product we deliver. So if you can't kind of assure your supply chain, if you will, you're not going to be able to really deliver to your clients in the ways in which you're committing. So it's imperative that you're able to provide that employee experience, knowing that that's one of the key drivers and what employees want as they look to their work environment or their work choices. The key aspects of the employee experience that have been prioritized in the last few years at North Highland in particular, one is, where do I work? Is it in the office? Is it at home? Is it within an office in an office? Is it within a collaborative space? The other piece is how I work. Let me define my hours. Do I want to work East Coast hours when I'm living on the West Coast? Do I want to take a break in the middle of the day and incorporate some wellness activities? Do I want to shift my hours around my family needs? And being able to offer flexibility within our client arrangements for that experience to be the case. We've seen an incredible push from our employees to really lean into our DEI strategy in an actionable way, making that transition from education to action. The next thing is ESG and the environmental impact of the work that we're doing and the work environments we're creating. The wellness and well-being has been another push from our employees. And then lastly, what are we doing to create a community of coworkers? It's that idea of bringing people back together for purpose and community versus a requirement to sit in an office. So for us, in order for us to have carried those things out, we had to really define it and structure it in a way that both enables the business and enables a consistent employee experience across offices and markets and leaders, and determine the way to measure the impact of these approaches. Our employees really wanted to hear that the way we're working matters, and that the benefits, and that it benefits the company and the communities in which we work. So for us, that's meant that we've had to assess how our employees are coming in, whether those reduced work arrangements or alternative hours are being supported, and what that's led to from a productivity standpoint, how many people are engaged in our DEI activities, and whether the investments that we've made from an environmental standpoint or ESG standpoint are really aligning to the particular business or environmental needs of the areas where we're doing business. We've incorporated wellness activities and Wellness Wednesdays into our week, and then really looking at what's been the engagement in our employee events. So it really does kind of come down to your leaders setting the tone, defining that experience, and then reinforcing that throughout your day-to-day and measuring whether or not it matters.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Any context to add from Stephanie, Tori, or Amy?
I would just add, because Jennifer answered that so eloquently, particularly for the current employee, I would just add that we have a responsibility to recognize that the employee experience begins even before somebody becomes an employee. And there, I can't think of a time where that's more important than right now, in the middle of COVID, post-COVID environments. I mean, from an HR perspective, we've always heard, and we know that it takes 6 to 10 seconds to look at a resume and make a decision. Well, guess what? Candidates / employees are making that same determination just as fast about us. And that's from how they apply online or how they apply for positions. It's how quickly they hear from us. It's their onboarding process. It's all of those things. It's, are we really laying out the red carpet for them? And are we allowing, especially in a remote world, how are we handling technology issues and kind of getting them up to speed as fast as possible? So I think sometimes that experience, and even where I'm at, I'm at a technology company, and we are always striving to improve how we use technology to help our employees, become a part of the team faster, better, and more efficiently, and just not to forget that particular process begins before they, sign on the dotted line.
Great, thanks, Jennifer and Amy. Now that we've covered the importance of a well-defined employee experience, I'm going to share my screen. And Stephanie, do you mind sharing some context on Allstate's approach to the people experience?
Sure. And I'll wait for it to come up. First, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to my incredible people experience team. We had discussed as a panelist group how fortunate I am to be able to have a group that is dedicated specifically to people experience. And so at Allstate, we look at people experience through 4 pillars. It's the physical office experience when they're coming in, as Jennifer mentioned, those moments that matter, how they engage with technology, like Amy mentioned, and then their experience through the employee lifecycle. And sometimes these will overlap, but they don't necessarily have to. I know we'll get to this a little bit more later, but making sure that we have the employee voice come through on each of these, we start designing with the employee at the center of them. So we use design thinking principles, and we really are engaging a large portion of our workforce to be able to give us feedback on the design of all of these experiences, so that they have a voice in them, and then they feel like that experience is something they've helped to co-create as well.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Any context to share from the rest of the group on their company's approach to the people experience?
I love the pillars, Stephanie. So thank you so much for sharing. And what we've done over the last year and a half is to kind of gone in and redefined our employee value proposition, similarly to say, what are those things that matter for our employees. The 3 things they came back with when we kind of gave them this initiatives, they said, We love the people we work with. We love what we do, and we love that we can drive our careers here. So it really was really focused on that human experience piece of or pillar of your visual here.
The other thing that I would add is I wonder, Stephanie, where this lives for you, but the meeting experience or the gathering experience, I'm guessing it's sort of an overlap between human and digital and work, but I'd be interested to hear how Allstate's talking about what is the experience of meetings, because in my previous organization, I probably spent 70% of my week in meetings, and it can really tarnish or enhance an employee's experience based on what the meeting culture is like. And is it purposeful? Is it intentional? Are there clear agendas? Is who's in the room, who needs to be in the room? Is the time used wisely? So maybe you can address that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say it definitely is many pieces of this. And I think as we are starting to come back a little bit more regularly, some people are coming in and some are staying home, and that's okay. But it does create a different experience for those that are in the room versus those that aren't in the room. And we've invested a lot in technology to enable us to have screens like we're looking at right now, where each person, whether they're in the room or they're at home, has their own box, which makes a huge difference for the individual that's sitting at home. You really feel like you're part of the conversation. So we're investing in technologies to be able to help with some of the physical aspects of the meeting culture. Beyond that, we actually have a role that we're working on filling right now called a workplace futurist. And that person's going to be dedicated to helping us understand when you come in, why you come in, when you meet. Does it make sense to meet in person? Does it make sense to have this meeting virtually? And then to just layer one more thing on top of it is, we have over 50,000 employees globally. And when we went home before COVID, we are a very relationship-based organization, and there was a lot of conversations that happened in the hallways. And we didn't all sit in the same office, but in each office, those conversations happened. And if you needed something from someone in a different office, you picked up the phone and you called them. Very quickly, in March of 2020, all 50,000 people were then working at home, and we very quickly shifted, and it was not intentional, but by nature of what was going on, to an email focused and lots of Teams chats and AIIMs, and sometimes some texting, depending on the nature of it, which was great when everybody was home. The pain that we're feeling now is if 49,800 people are at home and 200 are in the office, what does that feel like for the 200 in the office who aren't at their desk emailing and chatting all day? I want to be present when I'm in the office. I want to engage with my peers. I want to, debate things, and that's great, but it leaves me a full day of work at the end of that day. And so working through those dynamics. So we don't have answers yet, Tori, but it's definitely at the forefront of our mind, and so much so that we're investing in hiring someone to really start digging into that and helping us come up with some of those solutions.
Great, thanks, Stephanie and Tori. Moving on to our next question. As an executive or HR leader, if you're not thinking about reimagining your employee experience today, you run the risk of losing critical talent and being less agile than your competitors. Creating an effective and positive employee experience starts with basic framework, which is critical to the delivery. What are the main categories that executives and HR leaders should prioritize their focus on? Tori, with your newly appointed role as president and CEO at AIIM International, I'm curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So I started at AIIM on December 1st, and I was an outside hire, so I had no previous experience with the organization. And for those of you on the call, including my fellow panelists, you probably remember those first few days as an executive, and it feels like a fire hose. And there's so much information coming at you. There's so many opinions about the people experience in particular. So what's interestingly worked for me is going back to my MBA education, and I pulled up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's actually what's helped me kind of prioritize going through the different elements of the people experience. So if you're not familiar with that, you can Google it, but it starts at the bottom of the pyramid. The foundation is the basic needs, which is the physiological and the safety needs. So I count that as compensation packages, looking at what is our health insurance like? What do we have a well-being program? you move up from there to the psychological needs, which are divided into esteem needs and belongings and love needs. And translated to the business world, I consider that, well, what's our culture like? Do we have cultural norms that dictate how we should treat each other? What's our recognition like? And how does that connect into a performance management system? I have some biases against traditional scoring and performance management systems. I'm probably more aligned with the world of objectives and key results and CFRs and all that. But I think it's important to look at, how do we recognize employees? How do we coach them when maybe they're struggling and not achieving goals? What does performance improvement look like? All of that stuff wrapped up into the psychological needs. And then with the self-fulfillment needs, to me, that's directly related to how are we enhancing people's careers so that, to the earlier point, we can retain employees. What are they gaining from spending years of their lives with us, and hopefully coming out better on the other side of it whenever they decide to leave our organization? So that pyramid has helped me at least calm down a little bit and look at things in segments, and prioritize what's, I think, the most critical at this point, compensation and benefits.
Great, thanks, Tori. Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, Tori, I was just going to comment on that. I'm so with you. We could spend the whole session on performance management, but I think it's so key to the employee experience, because I don't know about all of you. I'm assuming we're all in the same boat where our employees kind of dread that experience as an employee, and our managers dread it too. Do I have to write? How many words do I have to write in that box when I give the performance review annually? When my company a couple of years ago, we bagged the whole thing. There was so much anxiety around the experience of giving the feedback and receiving it every 12 months, and even kind of on that, that mid-year review. Right, wrong, or indifferent, guys, we just threw it out the window and said, let's move to rolling objectives. You're not going to give an annual review. You're not going to do a mid-year review. We think we know what it's going to look like. We're not exactly sure. So check in with me in a year and I'll let you know how it's going.
Great, thanks, Amy.
I love that. I love that idea. Love it, especially because, in previous organizations where it was truly the traditional performance review, you score the people, you sit down, it takes 80 some hours to do. I felt like I was having retention problems as soon as that was over. People walking out the door because they weren't happy with the review. They weren't happy with how it impacted their compensation. It's kind of toxic in a lot of ways.
Very much so, because, well, the first step we did to get there was we removed the ratings of like the 1, 2, 3, and 4, because it's amazing how as humans we attach ourselves to that value. What do you mean I'm just a 4? You did a great job, but you did an excellent job, but you still did a great job. That's a 4. So yes, we should talk more. We're all trying to, I think, get the end result, which is you want employees to feel appreciated, supported. You want them to be productive, but you don't want them to feel like, there's a certain number or a percentage that they get, and that tells them what their value is, because that's not what we're trying to accomplish by the whole performance management process anyway. So yeah, thanks.
Jennifer, anything to add, or do we want to move on to the?
What I would just say from our perspective is our employees are hungry for timely feedback. We believe that employees show up every day wanting to do their best, and they want that real-time feedback and want to know. And one of the things that we've done to enable that is just create an anytime feedback form where you literally, through our systems, can send someone a note that says, I would love feedback from you. I did this with you yesterday, this BD pursuit, or we wrapped up this project, and I would love to know what your thoughts are. And we just implemented that this past year, and I have found so much more rich conversation around management happening because it's that real-time exchange, and it's opened up, I think, people's comfort zone so that we can begin to, because I align with you all, these performance management cycles we have to go through are so burdensome on the business, and they don't reap the rewards that you're hoping. And so we're looking to evolve our approach. And for me, just this feedback real time has been such a positive step in the right direction.
Great, thanks everyone. We had our first question come in from the audience. What does performance management cycle look like for the group every quarter or annually, or any additional context that can be shared?
I can go ahead and start. So given that we are the largest organization on the call, we still stick with the annual review, and then we do mid-year check-ins, and that annual review drives a lot of other parts of our process.
I'll speak for us too. So we, as you know, moved to rolling objectives 2 years ago. Rolling objectives it means different things to different departments in our organization. So for example, in HR and finance, it truly is like a quarterly, more of a quarterly formal conversation. But for some of our other departments, like for example, our service desk, our digital workplace organization, those folks are having conversations at least every other week. Now they're talking, of course, daily, right, with their managers, but they're having more formal conversations about performance, SLA attainment, attendance, key objectives, those sorts of things. Of course, their growth and their career path, certifications, those sorts of things. Those are all part of that conversation that they're having bi-weekly. Why? Because we're staying really close to their performance, which is tied to end user outcomes for our clients. So it just varies depending on which department they're in.
For North Highland, for our consulting population, they receive feedback at the end of every project, and our projects range from a 30-day engagement to a 6-month to at times a multi-year, but we ensure that they get feedback regarding their engagement every 90 days. So we call them project reviews. You'll get a project review every 90 days. We have that anytime feedback form where employees can give and receive feedback at any given point. And we do still have the traditional mid-year and year-end performance management cycles, but we have evolved the approach to, in our kind of calibrations at the mid-year, it really is about what's promotion readiness look like, or are there individuals that clearly need to be addressed, but it's no longer this cycle where you review everyone twice a year. We're really getting out of that model and more about how are we using those cycles as a push for development or a push to upgrade our workforce, depending upon what we're seeing in the results.
Great, thanks, Jennifer, and really appreciate everyone's perspective on performance management at their respective companies. Moving on to the next question, as an HR leader or executive focused on the employee experience, what strategies are you and your team focused on today that get you excited? Amy, can you share with our audience what strategies you are most excited about at Bell Techlogix?
This is ever evolving. I think that our workforce, like everybody else, went 100% remote during COVID. So always looking for ways to engage employees, particularly around things that are important to us in terms of our values as a business, and certainly what we know our employees want and need. Through just a lot of listening to them, a lot of communication. So I think that some of those strategies really revolve around connection and how to help employees better connect and better belong, particularly when we're all remote, which can be challenging. So I think some of the ways that we've done that, over the last, I'd say 12 to 18 months, and then continuing to look at how to evolve this in a better way as we move forward. It's around, somebody mentioned earlier, our DEI initiatives. We have a committee called Unify, which is employee-led. I'm like the management liaison, but employees really get together and decide what kinds of things we want to do as a committee. And of course, there's other components of that related to improving our demographics for women and minorities, the LGBTQ+, et cetera. But more so is just like those things that help people connect. So one of the things we did was we created a platform or a space called Courageous Conversations, as an example. Unify puts this on, and we've had different topics and we don't record these sessions on purpose because we want people to feel like they can come and share with the people that also came to talk about that specific subject, and talk in a very open and trusting environment. We've had huge success with this. We're actually meeting next week to outline what those courageous conversations will look like in 2023, and they might shift based on what's happening in our world, right? I mean, we kicked this off during the George Floyd time frame. So there was a lot of emotion around that with our employee base naturally. And so I think we wanted to talk about it. That's been a great way for our employees to feel heard, respected, and just participate in some of those difficult conversations that generally you wouldn't bring to work, but we're bringing them to work on purpose. And I think that's there's a lot of value in doing that. Another thing I'd say is around connection is just, we have a program called Gift of Time. So we pay people to volunteer, and which is great. I love this program. But I really wanted us, and there's so much, there's a hunger for our employees we want to volunteer together. We want to spend some time together giving back. So we created some opportunities for our teams to do that. As an example, we have, obviously a lot of employees in Indianapolis where we're headquartered. So we brought people together for some events. In fact, most recently, Pack Away Hunger was a great event we had with some local staff. And for those that are not local or not in a place where they can participate in those events, there's ways to, give online or get engaged online with those respective, I think, initiatives. Always improving communication. I think there's always ways that we can do better. We created what we call a 5-bullet Friday. We're in a 500-person, company. And so sometimes you feel like everybody, and then sometimes our new hires can feel like they get lost if we're not very purposeful in how we communicate with them. So we have an employee spotlight as a part of that 5-bullet Friday, where we highlight not just new employees, but also employees across the organization, who they are, what they do, and things about them outside of work, which I think is really important too, just to help make that connection. You'd be amazed how many times we'll post something and somebody will say, oh, I really like to do that too, right? Or whatever it is. I like to cook too, or I'm a Harry Potter fan as well. Next thing you know, everybody's connecting and having a conversation about what they read in the employee spotlight in a 5-bullet Friday. Who knew something like that could be so effective and bring people together? But it does. I think that, the other thing we do in terms of connection with employees is we launched something last year called Illuminations. Illuminations is also generally an employee-led platform where a SME can come on, and we'll create a schedule early on in the year, and it's very flexible. We can say, hey, Amy, why don't you come on and talk about this particular subject? Or if we have a new service offering, we'll bring on somebody to talk about, from our product team or service delivery, to talk about what that new service offering is. If we have a reorg that might impact the rest of the organization, or a change in how we're structured, we would use that platform where everybody can come. We also use that platform for specific like soft skills training too, or maybe a sales training for not salespeople, but people that still sell. So I think that there's an opportunity that it gives people a voice. So instead of coming and only hearing an executive talk, they can hear their peers, right? We also do a day in the life in those sessions as well. So if you work in desk side and you want to hear what it's like to work in project management or analytics, this is a great opportunity for you to learn about the team, what kind of projects they work on, what you can do in your career path to get there. And we just have a lot of success in that program, and lots of requests for topics too, which is great.
One of the things that I'm really excited about is that I get to, in a lot of ways, start from scratch. So I'm the CEO of a small nonprofit, which didn't have a lot of systems in place and a lot of intentional employee experience in place either. So one of the ideas I'm playing around with right now is participatory democracy. And this is something actually our chief human resource officer at my previous organization turned me on to. Local governments have been getting constituents together and basically giving them a set amount of money and asking them to solve problems for the local community. So she and I had been theorizing about how do you apply this actually to your organization, especially because I came from a fairly large organization as well, where it's not really possible or feasible for 300 to 500 people to come up with your employee experience, but can you get a few of them to come up with that? I have the luxury of a very small team, and I can actually get my entire staff to help craft what the employee experience ought to be for the next few years, so I want to play with the idea of actually getting my staff to help develop what the performance management system should look like, and give them, some guardrails, right? Like, this is how much we'll spend. This is how much time I want us to devote to it every year, and help them craft that vision so that they immediately are bought into it.
Yeah, Tori, I love what you're describing there, and kind of that grassroots ground-swelling definition of what the employee experience should be, or how to solve complex business problems. So for us, we have an enviable culture group. So our mission as a company is to be the most enviable culture on the planet, where people achieve their highest potential. I'm trying to remember all the words there. And we have this group, and mid-year through 2021, I sat down with the group and I said, we've got to reimagine what our value proposition is, because we can't continue to assume that what was valuable to people before COVID is going to be valuable after COVID, and the world's evolving around us. So let's do that. And so they spent time doing focus groups and all these whiteboarding sessions, and honestly having a blast defining all of these things, and really put it back together for us. And what was interesting is it was still very aligned with what our value proposition was when we were founded 30 years ago, but with a refreshed set of eyes and a refreshed group. And we really do find that the more we can find pockets of opportunity to use that democratic approach of, you all go solve this problem, or you all come up with this solution, we see so much more engagement and so much more commitment to carrying those things forward, when it's not coming from me or our other executives.
Thanks, everyone. And we just had a question come in from the audience. And Jennifer, this question is specific to one of your responses. As Jennifer explained with some of the main components that drives the employee experience, she mentioned the when, community, wellness, and well-being, and the how employees work, meaning employees are wanting more flexibility on their work hours. This individual has read several articles of companies considering 4-day work weeks as a way to reduce stress, give more free time to do things employees love, et cetera, resulting in positive incomes on employee recruiting and retention. Any opinions on that up-and-coming perk and or benefit?
I'm going to let Tori answer the question about the 4-day work week, because she just pinged me and let me know that she has that. But what I can tell you as it relates to how we've navigated the when and the how for our employees is, we're a consulting business, so our clients are going to dictate some of that. But what we've talked about with our employees is draw your boundaries. And especially in the consulting field, pre-COVID, it was you're working 6 to midnight some nights. It is a pressure cooker of an environment. And we've said, no, you don't have to take that call at 7 p.m. when you want to be sitting down with your family. Shut down calls, shut down your meeting days, and create those boundaries. How you determine when you work outside of those is totally up to you. We've also said, you know what, if there are priorities, and most people that have come forward with priorities are around family or wellness related things. Most of the expressed desires there have been, I really need to go do this thing with my child at their school, and I'm going to prioritize that. And my client team is going to support it. So it's really been about the client teams coming together and saying, what are our priorities as individuals, and how do we support those priorities as we roll through the work? The other piece, and I found this really a great one from a DEI perspective, is this was in the fall of last year. We had a big Diwali celebration, and it was really amazing to see all of our employees come together. And so many people said, I had so many deliverables for work this week, and this is a really important week for me to take that time off. And so we've created additional awareness around religious and spiritual celebrations, and said, client teams, be very mindful of when you're drafting those deliverables to not interfere with that. So those are some of the ways that we're talking about. I mean, I have employees that say, I'm going to start at 6 a.m. I'm going to stop at 9, go for my run, or go do this activity with my child, and then I'm going to plug back in at different times. And really, that it's come down to that communication with their core teams and how they all navigate it collaboratively and collectively. But Tori, I know you've got info on the 4
I 100% agree, though, with it's about communication too, because the only way you can have successful flexibility like that, because I have an all remote team, is to have that level of communication about, this is my family time, I'm going to the doctor, this is my focus time, please respect that. So we've established some norms about that actually just this week. But the 4-day work week actually preceded my tenure. We do a 4-day work week just in the summer. And what I found interesting about it is there's a caveat to it, because we are also customer focused, member focused in our case. My team will respond to member inquiries and member deliverables on Fridays, not internal requests. So you won't get a response to an internal email, but you will for an external email. So I thought that was kind of an interesting distinction, but that's given the team the breathing room to feel like they still have kind of a 4-day work week in the summer. And so what I found appealing about that was it doesn't have to be so clear cut. It's not a black or white issue about we're only going to do 4-day work weeks. It's focused on the outcomes. What are you actually trying to accomplish that 5th day of the work week? And can you sort of bend things and personalize it to your own organization's needs?
Yeah, both of you have said this, that the key in that is all the way around is communication. I remember 6 or 7 years ago, I guess it's been a little longer than that, I'm dating myself here, but my boss, I was brand new at the company I was at, and my boss had emailed me on a Saturday, and I immediately emailed her back, and she said, hey, FYI, I'm getting ready for a trip, I'm heading out, I'm sending you some emails on a Saturday, I have no expectation that you're working on a Saturday morning right now, I just want you to be aware. That never left me, and in fact helped me know that, when I went into this next role where I'm at Bell Techlogix and beyond, that's exactly how I want to communicate to my team. So if I say, hey, I might be working tonight, it doesn't mean I intend for you to be. I was off from 3 to 4 at a kids thing or whatever. So I think you're right, Tori, all of it. It's communicating, where you're going to be, what you're going to do, what your expectations are, and then everybody's on the same page, right?
Great, thanks everyone. One last question from the audience before we move on. This is for Amy and the rest of the group. For equity, diversity, and inclusion events and courageous conversations, I found that the majority are run by people who are driving the initiatives. For example, marginalized people or people who feel like they're already safe in the workplace and do not mind engaging with the audience. As a result, most of these events actually end up failing, meaning they are convos without action or convos that miss the mark, engaging a larger audience. How are you reaching audiences that don't usually participate? What tools or tactics are you using to build that safe environment for the employee experience?
That's a great question and a great point. I think that but by nature of those conversations, you're going to have some of that. But I will tell you, one of the things that we very purposely did with Courageous Conversations is we did not create this platform for a discussion so we could come away with actions. Now, that's something our DEI committee does, Unify. The committee itself works with the executive team and others to develop, strategies around DEI, how we're going to execute those, what are our goals, what things are we going to do to meet those goals. But that is separate from Courageous Conversations. The Courageous Conversations was not meant to, have some deliverables afterwards. It was really meant to talk about hard things. And you're right. I mean, a lot of the people that come to those conversations have strong opinions or thoughts about them, but I would tell you not all of them do. I'll just think of one specific example. We recently had a courageous conversation around gender identity. So the people that kind of raised their hand to help support those conversations and facilitate were very knowledgeable in this area. And to be honest, I learned a lot, in this courageous conversation. And I was very pleased to have it. We had people in that conversation that said, I just want to understand. I'm here because I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I should ask someone's preference. Should I ask? Should I not ask? So I was thinking the same thing. I thought everybody that's going to come to this is going to be here to talk about, an issue that's that they're very passionate about, likely because they identify with that issue or they know someone really close to them that does. But the truth is, we had people attend that just wanted to learn and understand more. So I think that you will have that, and that's okay. Even if you only had people there that were passionate about that subject, that's okay too. Right? Because it's still a platform to bring them together, discuss it, to I think to bond with other people in their workplace that might have similar experiences or opinions about issues like that. So I don't think there's a wrong answer, even if that is what the experience is for those that attend those events. That's my thought.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that having those events is important in and of itself, and having it with the intent of trying to change people's minds actually would backfire, right? When people feel threatened is the wrong word, but when people feel forced, they're going to reject whatever it is they're being forced into doing. And so I think exactly to Amy's point, which is, open it up, let those that are curious come. And if you have them several times, maybe the first time they don't feel comfortable coming, but then they're a little bit more curious and they'll start listening. And that truly is the action. That's where this isn't the type of thing that you're going to be able to make huge movement on quickly. It's a lot of little changes along the way.
I'll chime in here too. So we've got a fairly robust ERG structure, and for every ERG, they have an executive sponsor, and most of our executive sponsors are not aligned to the group. So our Black Employee Network is led by a white woman, and our Pride Network is led by a straight man. So we are purposeful in the selection of the executive sponsors to say, we don't want you to be representative of that group because we want you to show your commitment to education and the pursuit of openness. So we start there, and then for our executives, all executives have a requirement to go to at least 50% of our ERG events, and we have 1 to 2 a month. So we say you're required to show up 50% of the time, and then from there, each executive has a DEI goal, and those vary from everything to sponsorship of an mentorship, to sponsorship of an internal book club, to being an exec sponsor of an ERG. So there's that accountability that comes from the top. And what I've found is it is through, and we call them safe space conversations. It's through the safe space conversations that we have and the book clubs that we have, because we have a book club that meets once a quarter, and an ERG selects the topic, and people are randomly placed in groups, and it's a mix of all levels, and it's these small group conversations where people are really finding the most level of comfort in discussing things, and then increased comfort in attending larger events. And so it's through kind of a series of activities where, to Stephanie's point, you're creating that comfort in the openness of discussion. But I do think it starts with accountability from the top. And for us, it has been a commitment and accountability that's tied to performance management and bonuses, where we've said you must show up and set the tone.
Really appreciate the group sharing their thoughts on creating a safe environment throughout the employee experience. Another question that came in from the audience is that I want to address. I've thought extensively about the last 3 years and the shift on employee experience. Why do we think that COVID gave us and companies permission to put more focus here? Employees have always had the same needs. Most of them were all overworked previously. Most didn't have boundaries. None of those were issues back then. But why do we talk about it as it was? Why did your leadership team start to finally listen and pay attention and give their permission?
For me, it was the Great Resignation. Employees started making choices. And so that's why I said at the top of the hour, it was a workforce revolution. Employees forced businesses to prioritize it, whereas many things in the past may have been a nice to have or an ancillary benefit or something that was there that not a lot of people engaged in. It became the point where employees said, COVID has taught me that my life experience and how I'm living is way more important, because time is finite, and life for many people became finite, and community became, completely isolated. And so it was the employees forcing employers, from my perspective.
And I think we've always cared about it, right? Especially, we're all in HR here, right? So I think we've always cared about the employee experience, and we work at places that care about the employee experience, or we probably wouldn't stay, right? But I think, to your point, it wasn't top of mind, because you just get so focused on our clients, our customers, the day-to-day, all the things, all the busy stuff. COVID made everybody take a pause, and I think sometimes you just need a shake up to think about, oh, wait a minute. These things are really important. Yeah, they've always been important, but we haven't been talking about how important they really are. What are we doing to make sure that those people are staying engaged? And yeah, Jennifer, you're so right. We saw it on both ends, right? We saw the Great Resignation. We saw it. If I look at all my people metrics, I see a very clear jump. And specifically, actually, our Great Resignation for us, it was maybe a couple months after people started using the term Great Resignation. Like, people thought, oh, I'm going to be a part of that. We're like, don't be a part of that. But they were. So we experienced that as well. We also saw it on the flip side with candidates. For the first time ever in my career, I can't tell you how many candidates were ghosting interviews, signing up, I'll see you Monday, and not showing up. I'd never experienced this in my career. I couldn't believe it. So it was happening all over the place. And that puts us in a position of, oh, wait a minute, we gotta do something different, so we aren't ghosted. So we keep employees, and they don't want to resign. I think it made it more of a priority than ever before.
I think for us, it was those things, but it also was a lot of our experience was tied to the physical workplace, right? We were very fortunate. We had this beautiful campus. For those of you that are in the Chicagoland area, everyone drove by, you saw the huge Good Hands sign. And inside of that campus was this enormous, beautiful cafeteria. There was a CVS in the building. There was a Starbucks. Like, it was all, we had a Starbucks. It was a bad habit. But it was a lot of it was tied to that physical space. And so when we said everyone could work from home, and then we gave our employees the choice of whether they wanted to remain remote, we're now at 83% fully remote. And it has significantly helped our recruiting. It has helped our diversity numbers, and we're thrilled by that. But that also forces us to reimagine what that experience looks like for them, because some of them have never been in an Allstate building. And so that's part of what forced us to look at it as well.
I also wonder how much of it, and I don't have any stats to back this up, so this is just me theorizing. Gen Z at the height of the pandemic was just entering the workforce. I think Gen Z starts at 1997. So I do wonder what that generational perspective had on our retention and recruitment, because where I was experiencing ghosting issues or recruitment issues or retention issues was actually the entry-level positions and the Gen Zers. And I hate to buy too much into generalizations, but I do think Gen Z is starting to dictate our employee experience and the way we think about work. They are absolutely digital natives. They were born into it. So remote work for them is not that big a deal. A lot of them have no recollection of what it was like to work in a physical workspace, because they entered the workforce just as the pandemic hit. So I think we probably should not underestimate how much their perspectives are going to shape not just the workforce, 3 to 5 years down the line, but 10 years down the line when they're hitting middle management positions.
Great, thanks, Tori. We're going to try and cover 2 more questions that have came in from the audience before we wrap up here. And Stephanie, I want to direct this question to you and the rest of the group. Is there any one piece of technology you like for enhancing the employee experience? And what did that piece of technology bring to the experience overall?
I think what I would say is it's not a piece of technology, it's a type of technology. And for me, there's this just huge growth in an employee experience layer over all of your technologies that is essentially an aggregator. And it enables the employee to have every piece of technology, every piece of information that they need at their fingertips in one place, right? So imagine, the intranet or whatever opens when you open your browser that you also can access through your phone or your iPad or whatever device it is that you're using, that has, you know, company communications, it has the weather, it has the stock price, it has any tickets you have open, whether it's IT tickets or HR tickets, it has the date of your next paycheck, it has your PTO balance, and it's all in one place, and you can easily click through to get things. It really, truly, by making that seamless, by making that integrated, you've put the power back to the employees and actually reduced frustration and keeps them focused on their job, right? For us, a good portion of our employees are serving our customers, right? If you have an insurance claim, you want someone to answer the phone, right? You don't want them worried about where their next paycheck is. And so for us, it's really minimizing the time it takes them to get them what they need so they can be fully engaged in their roles, and being able to do that from anywhere with anyone. And we are on a journey to get there. We are definitely not there yet, but we're beginning that journey.
And I cannot resist putting in a plug for my members. So I represent the information management industry, and they are the folks that, you know, Microsoft and Cisco, and the folk open text who put those types of layers in there. So they're focused on information access. And one of my big tips for today would be you as HR executives should be partnering with your IT team to make sure that that digital workspace is just as wonderful as your physical workspace is and was, because they should have access to all the information they need. They should have access to collaboration tools and virtual lunchrooms and pulse surveys and all of that good stuff to make the digital experience rewarding.
And I would just add to that one quick thing too. If you're not using some sort of mechanism within your HRIS or recruiting system to use texting, do it. Move towards that as soon as you can, because I mean, we've all seen the really hilarious but very correct progressive commercials where nobody leaves voicemails anymore. Don't bother. I mean, you have to use technologies that are, you know, that candidates want to see. And in fact, just yesterday, I emailed a candidate about a conversation, didn't hear back. Text him today, he immediately replied, "Oh, I guess I'm behind on my emails." So when we were using email as the quick thing, that was yesterday. So those kinds of things I think are really important too.
Awesome. Well, I want to give a very special thank you to our panelists for a very informative and educational discussion today. Feel free to scan their QR code and connect with them on LinkedIn. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for our past events, including the Halo series and mini series, where we feature thought leaders in a one-on-one setting as they discuss what is keeping them up at night. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and please keep an eye out for the survey request early next week, and we will have a version uploaded to YouTube on Monday, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. I hope everyone has a great weekend.